Are you struggling to freely navigate the fretboard? Or maybe you're looking for a way to change up your chord progressions? The answer is chord inversions. And there's good news. They don't have to be complicated or super technical. We're simply going to take what you already know and use it to open up the fretboard. Let's get started. So inversions are a great way to access the fretboard and move in a bit of a smoother way rather than using big clunky chords. Maybe something like, something like that. Which there is nothing wrong with bar chords. I mean, they work great. There's just a different sound that we're going for, and also opening the fretboard a little bit more. This method is going to add a whole different dynamic to your rhythm playing. You're going to spice up your chord progressions, harmonize melodies, and make those chord changes sound super smooth. It's not required, but it helps a little bit if you're familiar with the cage system and just like splitting the fretboard into 5 different chord shapes. Again, you don't have to know it, but it helps a little bit. If you would like a lesson on the cage system, be sure to click the link. So take the G chord for example. There are only 3 notes in the G major chords, G, B, and D. The 1, the major 3rd, and the 5th, right? All in reference to the... Now what happens with guitar is that they're doubled because we have 6 strings. But if we go through them, you'll see that we have G, B, D, G again, and then B, and then G, right? And that gives us G major. They're just repeating. But now if we change the base of the note, we're going to get an inversion. Simply put, if I start my chord from the 5th string, if I get rid of my 6th, technically I'm already playing an inversion. There is not that much of a difference because I'm playing the same shape. In this case, it would be a first inversion because the 3rd of the chord is in the bass. If the 5th of the chord was in the bass, it would be a second inversion. And in that case, we could just strum it from the 4th string, which is D. That's the 5th of the chord. And that would be G major, second inversion. As you can see, the concept is not really complicated. Just take your chord, put a different note from the chord in the bass. But let's expand on this so we can open up the fretboard and it's not just a concept, it'll be practical. If you would like a chart for all the chords that I'm using in this lesson, click the link in the description. Now check this out. We're going to take these 6-string bar chords, right? We're going to split them up into sets of strings because here we have all the notes that we need, all the inversions that we need. We're just going to divide into sets of strings. So let me show you what I mean. In this chord, for example, A major, we have A, E, A, C sharp, E, and A. So really the 3 notes that make A major, it's A, C sharp, and E. But of course, again, we have some notes that are doubled. Now check this out. We're going to divide this chord into different sets of strings, starting with the 6th, the 5th, and the 4th string. Here, I don't have a 3rd in this, so it's technically just a powered chord. But if we take the next set of strings, and I'm changing up my fingering a little bit here just so I don't hold this all the time, this would be an A major second inversion because I have E, A, and C sharp. Those are the 3 notes that I need in the chord. If I go to the next set of strings, I have A, C sharp, and E. This is a triad in the root position, right? And then the last set of strings 3, 2, and 1, I have C sharp, E, and A, meaning it's a first inversion, A major, triad, or chord. So now you can take any of these little positions that all come from this chord, right? And move them across the fretboard. The only thing you have to keep track of is your root note, and that's going to move around a little bit. For example, here, my root's in the 1st string. I just have to remember that, right? Like if I'm going from this A major chord, I have 3 roots. 1 in the 6th string, 1 in the 4th, 1 in the 1st. So it's going to show up in different sets, right? Like if I go on the 5th, 4th, and 3rd string, my root is on the 4th string, right? So if I want to move it up by a whole step, I know it's a B major triad in the second inversion because this is a B note right here, right? Or for example, if I wanted to take the first 3 strings, I know that my root is on the 1st string. So maybe if I wanted to make a C major chord, I look for a C and I plug in my shape. So we're still using shapes to move around the fretboard, just like we use these big shapes to move around the fretboard as well. It's just this time we're using smaller ones and we're good to go. So let's take a 5th string bar chord and let's go off of the 5th fret here. D major, right? This one's super common. Also, if you're familiar with the cage system, this would be the A position, but no need to worry. So here we can divide again. The first one that we're gonna get, 5, 4, and 3. Again, it's a power chord, so it's not necessarily a triad, and you probably know this already if you're familiar with bar chords. But if we go to the next one, we get a second inversion triad. And the chords in my D major chord are A, D, and F sharp. Those are the only ones I need. A being the 5th, it's in the bass, second inversion. Now here's the next set. We get a little bit less with this one, but these are super common. So we have D, F sharp, and A. So that would make it a root position triad. These are super common. Now this next shape I want to show you moves a little bit closer with the cage system, but not to worry. Basically what you're doing here is just taking this C chord and you're going to move it up to a different position. So you have to change the fingering. Again, these are all in the chart that's in the description if you have it, if you want to look at it. If I take the 5th, the 4th, and the 3rd string, I have a root position. 1, 3, 5, D, F sharp, and A. If I move down to the next set of strings, this one's very common. It's a first inversion D major triad. This is my 3rd, this is my 5th, and this is my root, my D. And then look what happens here. If I take the 1st, the 2nd, and 3rd string, we have this super classic D major shape. It's a D major triad. So of course, if I moved it here, I just have to remember here my root is on the 2nd string. So this is G, this is A, B, C, they're all major, right? Now I only show you major chords, and we're only dealing with major and minor triads, but the minor triads are super easy. So for example, if you take the same major chord, just like I showed you, you drop the middle finger, you divide it in the same way that we did before, right? It's just gonna look a little bit different. The fingering might be a little bit different. Only the 3rd, to make it a minor 3rd, major 3rd from minor 3rd, you move it down by a half step, right? So if this is major, you have minor. You definitely have to think about what the notes are and what they are in relation to the triad, right? This is a minor 3rd, the 5th, and the root. So you always have to keep that in mind. You can't just play the shape anymore. You got to be aware of the notes that you're playing. The same thing with this chord right here. So here you get the same bar chord if you were to do a D minor. Doesn't matter, but if you switch to the 3rd, 2nd, and to the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd, you get a D minor triad, second inversion, same as before, it's just minor. And in here, a root position triad. And then this C shape works the same way. You just have to refinger everything. It works a little bit different. This one's a little bit trickier, but not necessarily that you're going to be playing the shape. You just want to know how to split it up. And this one doesn't fit the C major position so much anymore, but if you know your D major, you probably know your D minor, and by now you know that you can move it around just like you did with a D major triad. So how do you actually implement this information? And this is where the most fun begins, because you kind of get to improvise with chords a little bit. Let's take a very famous progression, the 1, 6, 4, 5 in G major. Now you can play this with open chords, which would be G, E minor, C, and D. The first example I want to show you, we're going to stay in one area of the neck. If I wanted to do it here, I might have to move around a little bit more, right? Or do something a little bit more drastic. Like that's a big change right there, right? Still works, sure. So check this out. We're gonna stay in one section of the neck. We're gonna start with a G major first inversion down here, right? Then we're gonna go to a D minor second inversion. This example's on the chart. Then we need a C major, right? Second inversion, because the 5th is in the bass. And then, check this out, we just move down. Now, do you hear that? The change sounds way smoother than if I were... Again, nothing wrong with that, just a different way to do it. I can't emphasize that enough. Now, let's look at another example to show you how you can use this to create also smoothness, but a little more direction and movement in your chord progressions. We're going to keep the same one, but let's say I just wanted to keep ascending or moving from my left to right physically, which generally means you're going higher, right? So I start with my G major with the root and the bass, with strings 4, 3, and 2. Then I move up to E minor, second inversion. Then I stay relatively here, but I am moving up a little bit, right? These are so close. C major, and then look, all I need to do from C to D, move it up, right? Now what if I wanted to go the other way? I can start with G major here. I can go to E minor, second inversion, right? Then I can go to C, and then finish off with D. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.